I'm just gonna do a little bit of a quick rundown on how you want to use your setups in the early game, how you can get a strong early game. Um, so I'm gonna be talking about like setups from King normal, like all the way to like Joint Revenge normal, and yeah, the general meta is to have like Speedy, Mighty on the sides of the first row, right? You can swap them; it doesn't really matter. And then you put your DPS carry in the middle, and your DPS carry can be like stacky. A lot of times it's stacky. If you get lucky, you get a Puffy. You can put a Puffy in there. Kevin's great. Um, I forgot what the Green Fire Epic guy is called, but you can put him in there too. Just anyone who's a strong damage dealer and who's a cheap unit, right? Because if you get an expensive unit, like special mythic, if you get like Felina or something, it's gonna be very difficult to upgrade them. Of course, I think there are some mythic units that you can use, like a Hades. Yeah, I think you can use a Hades, but like I would generally just stick with cheaper units. And if you do get, you can use Stacky. If you do get your legendaries, use your legendaries. Um, if they're good for DPS, of course. Um, and then on your mid row, you want stuns. If you can't get a mid row stuns, you get slows, right? So, example of this, Teddy, I believe he's a guaranteed drop from the first few summons. He's a pretty strong stun. Um, and then, yeah, of course, other Teddy, Golem. Get some epics. You can put the epics in there. Pretty good stuns. Um, and then you have yeah. If you don't manage to find too many stuns, which I don't think will happen much unless you're in like the very very early game, you can swap them out with some slows. Like the spider. I don't think you're gonna be switching anything out with Sluggy when. But yeah, by the time you get Sluggy, you probably can get like three stuns anyways. So he probably won't be coming into use too much. But like Spider in the early game, if you don't have three stuns, use him. And what this generally allows you to do is your front row will be doing a lot of DPS, and your mid row will be keeping enemies there for your front row to focus down if they do manage to make it past the front row, right? And for these guys, because their sole purpose is pretty much just to slow down enemies while your other monsters in the front do damage, you don't really need to put levels into them, right? Because when you level them, their special doesn't, like the stun duration doesn't change. So just prioritize your gold onto the monsters in the front row. Um, and then in your back row, you can have like secondary DPS that you don't really put too much gold into, just because a lot of the focus is on your front row. Or you can have utility, and by utility I mean like an ability that can cover the full map, right? So like Crispy, Felina, Susanu. So it's not very common that you do end up getting these monsters in the early game, but if you do, um, focusing your golds into them is not recommended because as before, what I was saying with like special and mythics in the front row, very difficult to upgrade them um, to a stage where they will be able to beat something like a Stacky or Puffy for the same amount of gold. Um, so yeah, like Susanu's strong, Felina's strong, Crisp strong, and they can all like have an ability that will impact the full map from the back row, right? Um, if you can't get these, of course, secondary DPS in the back row. You have stuns in the mid row anyways. Just let them finish off enemies that do manage to make it past your front rows. But you really shouldn't be relying on your back row too much at all. Um, yeah. And then, as I said before, prioritize upgrading front row. Mighty is better than Speedy, which is better than your um, DPS carry for the time being, because going into the going in the mid game after you've gotten Slime King, you want to be upgrading him, right? So before you get him, just like if you need to put levels into your DPS carry to get through a wave, yeah, of course, go for it. But it's not going to be your main priority, right? You want to focus on Mighty and Speedy. Um, and then yeah, as I said before, stuns don't require upgrades. So let's just look at some example setups right now. These are not going to be the best, the most optimal setups, but they're generally just using the concepts that I stated above. So yeah, you have your Stacky in the middle, you got stuns in the center, and then you got some secondary DPS in the back. Of course, Flamey is not the best here because that 5 second flame damage. Oh yeah, this Jack-o'-lantern guy too, because they do more damage over time. Not the best here, but not too much focus on your back row. Just get secondary damage here. You have stuns here anyways. Get a little bit more value out of that burn damage. This is set up using the green fire epic guy. Wait, is that fire? I have no idea. But yeah. See, if you do manage to get something like a cheap unit, epic unit does a bit better damage than Stacky. Put him in there. Got some more stuns in the mid row. Got some DPS in the back row. Maybe a stun in the back row. Um, yeah, and then this is just another setup using Puffy this time. Um, with more stuns. So Teddy's gonna also be like really important. I believe you're guaranteed to get him from your first few rolls, and he's a really strong stun. And when you're looking to see which like stunners you want to put in, you want to look at stun duration, but you also want to look at if it's AOE or not, right? So for example, the Ice Wolf, um, it's a 3 second stun, which is like pretty good, especially because Sparky's 2 second, but it's only single target, right? And because it's only single target, it can be worse in some situations than maybe like a Fury, who is multiple target 2 second stun, right? So you always want to take that into consideration. Um, but yeah, it's pretty much all you need to know for getting through the early game in terms of your setup. Uh, of course, there are other things getting through the early game, such as where to put your gem upgrades into. But I think that's a different topic to talk about, and this is just generally how you want to run your early game setup until or actually yeah, even after you get like Slime King or Death Bite, the Mighty Speedy setup is just really strong. Stuns in middle, really strong. Back row, you know, it honestly doesn't really matter too much. If your back row is getting pressured a lot, uh, it can probably just be fixed by upgrading your front row. So yeah, that's all I gotta say. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below. Any requests, leave it in the comments below. Like and sub. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.